Aberdeen, New South Wales, a quiet town where the Hunter River winds through green hills, its waters reflecting the last golden light of day. Here, the world feels untouched by chaos, and the air is thick with the scent of eucalyptus and earth. Life moves at a gentle, almost sleepy pace. The streets are rarely busy, and the rhythm of daily life is as predictable as the sunrise. On most evenings, the loudest sound is a distant train echoing across the valley, or the soft bleating of sheep settling in for the night. The world outside seems to whisper, never shout. Neighbours wave from their porches, families gather for dinner beneath the warm glow of kitchen lights, and the routines of small-town life play out in peaceful harmony, as if nothing could ever disturb this tranquility. But behind one door, the calm is a lie, a fragile mask hiding something far more sinister. The air inside is heavy, the curtains drawn tight, not for privacy, but to contain something dark, something that festers in silence. A storm is brewing, unseen by the town, a secret coiled in the shadows of an ordinary home. The walls seem to hold their breath, waiting. Evil doesn't always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it wears a neighbour's smile, blending in so perfectly that no one notices until it's too late. On this night, the sun sets in a blaze of colour, painting the sky with false promises of peace, and no one suspects the horror about to unfold. The quiet is deceptive. A deep breath before a scream, a pause before the world is turned upside down. Aberdeen's sense of safety is about to be shattered, its innocence lost in a single, irreversible moment. The town's name will soon be forever linked to an act of unimaginable violence, whispered about for years to come. The stillness is not peace, but the calm before a storm that will leave scars for generations, haunting every quiet night that follows. No one sees it coming. The ordinary masks the extraordinary, and the darkness slips in unnoticed. The darkness waits, patient and silent, biding its time as the town sleeps. The night will change everything, and Aberdeen will never be the same again. At the centre of this storm is Katherine Knight. Her name would one day become synonymous with terror, but her story begins in the shadows, long before the world knew her as a monster. To understand her, you must go back to her beginnings, a childhood marked by violence and chaos. The walls of her home echoed with anger, and fear was a constant companion. Abuse and neglect shaped her earliest memories, leaving scars that would never truly heal. She found work at the local abattoir, where death was routine and blood was part of the job. The sights and sounds of slaughter became her new normal, numbing her to pain and suffering. Katherine excelled, mastering the art of butchery with chilling precision. She moved with confidence, her hands steady and sure, as if she was born for this grim work. The knives became extensions of her hands, her detachment from violence growing with every shift. Each blade was a tool, but also a symbol of her control in a world that had once left her powerless. The slaughterhouse was more than a job. It was a forge, shaping her into something dangerous. The heat, the blood, the relentless routine, all of it hardened her, forging a new identity. Her temper was legendary, her rage explosive and unpredictable. Those who crossed her learned quickly to fear the storm that brewed just beneath her surface. She brought the skills and the coldness of the abattoir home with her. The line between work and personal life faded, and her family felt the chill of her presence. Possessive, jealous, and fiercely territorial, she was feared by those who knew her best. Her relationships were fraught with suspicion and control, her love as sharp as her knives. The line between work and home blurred. Violence became a language she spoke fluently. It seeped into every corner of her life, leaving no one untouched. The abattoir didn't create the monster, but it gave her the tools. It honed her instincts, sharpened her resolve, and gave her a sense of power she'd never known before. Katherine Knight was a predator in plain sight, her knives always within reach. She moved through life with a quiet menace, her intentions hidden behind a mask of normalcy. The seeds of horror were sown long before the final act. Her past was a garden of nightmares, each memory a root twisting deeper into darkness. The storm was gathering strength, and soon it would break with unimaginable force. Katherine's violence didn't erupt overnight. It escalated over years, rehearsed in her relationships. Her first husband, David Kellett, quickly learned her strength was dangerous. She tried to strangle him in a jealous rage. He escaped, but others weren't so lucky. David Saunders watched her kill his puppy as a warning, a brutal display of control. She smashed one man's face with a frying pan, stabbed another with scissors. These weren't arguments. They were acts of terror. Her partners lived in fear, trapped by shame and intimidation. Each violent act emboldened her, pushing boundaries further. The violence became routine, her control absolute. The world outside remained oblivious, the monster growing bolder. Katherine's rage was a fire, always hungry for more. She was perfecting her cruelty, testing her limits. The early cuts were practice for something far worse. The predator was preparing for her masterpiece. No one saw the danger until it was too late. Katherine's violence wasn't just physical, it was psychological warfare. She ruled her home through fear, her jealousy suffocating and obsessive. Partners learned to tiptoe around her moods, living in constant anxiety. She isolated them, threatened their families, and made escape seem impossible. Her control was total, her rage unpredictable. To defy her was to risk everything. The men in her life were hostages, not partners. She turned love into a weapon, home into a prison. No one held her accountable. Each act of terror went unchecked. The pattern of abuse set the stage for her final, horrific act. Katherine believed she was untouchable. All she needed was one last victim. John Charles Thomas Price, a father, a friend, a well-liked man in Aberdeen. He was the kind of person who would lend a hand to anyone in need, always quick with a joke or a story at the local pub. His life, though simple, was filled with the warmth of community and the comfort of routine. He fell for Katherine, perhaps believing he could tame her darkness, or at least weather her storms. Their connection was intense, magnetic, and for a while it seemed like love might be enough. But their relationship followed her familiar script: passion, then possessiveness, then violence. The cycle repeated, each time more volatile than the last. She stabbed him once, and he pressed charges, finally seeking help. It was a desperate act, a plea for protection from someone he once trusted. A restraining order was issued, but to Katherine it was just a challenge, a line drawn in the sand she was determined to cross. She stalked him, her presence a constant threat. No matter where John went, he felt her eyes on him, the weight of her obsession pressing in. John told friends he feared for his life, naming her as his likely killer if anything happened. His words were half warning, half confession. He knew the danger was real. He tried to break free, but the fear never left. Every night he double-checked the locks, haunted by the possibility that she might return. Katherine saw his attempt to leave as betrayal, a crime she would not forgive. Her anger simmered, growing more dangerous with every passing day. The tension mounted. John was living on borrowed time. Each moment felt heavier, as if the air itself was thick with dread. He was a marked man, caught in the sights of a relentless predator. There was nowhere left to hide, no one who could truly protect him. The final act was set in motion. The hours ticked by, each one bringing him closer to the inevitable. John's efforts to escape only sealed his fate. Every attempt to run seemed to draw her nearer, as if she could sense his desperation. He had provoked the storm one last time. The tragedy was inevitable, a collision course set by fear, obsession, and heartbreak. The hunter was closing in, and John Price's fate was sealed in the shadows of that fateful night. February 29th, 2000. John Price falls asleep, unaware Katherine Knight is in his house. She enters quietly, armed with a butcher's knife. What follows is a frenzy of violence. She stabs him repeatedly, over 30 times. The struggle is desperate, but John cannot escape. The attack is not just murder, it's annihilation. But Katherine isn't finished. She drags his body to the living room and, using her abattoir skills, skins him with chilling precision. She hangs the skin from a meat hook, a grotesque trophy. In the kitchen, she decapitates him, cooks his flesh, and prepares a meal. Plates are set for John's children, name cards in place, a final act of psychological torture. The night is long, the horror methodical. Katherine's actions are deliberate, each step a calculated display of control. The violence is ritual, not random. The house becomes a scene of unspeakable horror. The storm has broken, leaving devastation in its wake. Aberdeen will never be the same. Morning comes, and John Price doesn't show up for work. Concerned, a co-worker calls the police. Officers enter the house and are confronted by a nightmare. Blood everywhere, John's skin hanging from a doorway. Even hardened police are stunned by the brutality. In the kitchen, they find John's head boiling in a pot, plates of human flesh set for his children. Katherine is found asleep, having attempted suicide, but eerily calm when awakened. There is no remorse, no hysteria, just a chilling composure. News of the crime spreads quickly, shocking the town and the nation. The details are so grotesque, many struggle to believe them. Katherine's methodical butchery defies comprehension. The quiet town is forever changed. The mask is off, the monster revealed. Evil had lived next door. Katherine Knight's trial shocks Australia. The evidence is overwhelming: 37 stab wounds, skinning, and the planned meal. The prosecution argues this was not madness, but calculated evil. Her defense claims dissociation, but the methodical nature of her actions says otherwise. Testimony from past victims paints a portrait of relentless violence. Katherine sits impassive, unmoved by the horror described. Ultimately, she pleads guilty. The judge calls her crime almost unimaginable cruelty. The verdict is historic. Katherine Knight is a byword for depravity. The trial ends, but the scars remain. Katherine Knight is sentenced to life in prison, never to be released. It's the first time an Australian woman receives such a sentence. The judge declares her too dangerous for society. The nation is stunned, but relieved. For John Price's family, justice is cold comfort. The house is demolished, but the memory lingers. Katherine remains a notorious figure, a warning of the darkness that can hide in plain sight. Her story is a chilling reminder of the realities of domestic violence. Evil isn't always a stranger. It can be someone you love. Aberdeen moves on, but the scar remains. Some memories can never be erased.